Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. Today we'll continue our lab, the DC Comics lab. This is the 7th video. In the previous video we have been discussing the following. We have been preparing our second domain controller. We have created a virtual machine and we have named it DC02, and then we have installed Active Directory domain services on it and also the Wins services on it. Wins, it's something like the DNS in its function, but it was deprecated by Microsoft. It has been used for XP and older versions of Windows, but it's still valid, working until today. And then after we have installed Active Directory domain services, we have promoted the server to be a second domain controller, and after that we begin we have created a custom console and then added DNS, Active Directory, users and computers, group policy management, event viewer, computer management, Wins, DHCP, file server, resource manager. This because we will make the second domain controller acting as a file server and also to be acting as the DHCP. And then in this custom console we have put all of these features in this console, so we can configure all of them from one console and one window. Okay, and then we have already installed the DHCP and we'll begin configuring the scope of the DHCP, which is the IP addresses, which ranges will be distributed. Okay, this is done through the DHCP configuration, and also the DHCP will distribute the DNS server IPs and the Wins server IPs and the router if you have a router. All of this has been done, and then we have gone to the second step, or the next step. We have been creating department shares, okay, using scripts, and then we created department shares, as I said before, department share folders using scripts. What I mean that we have created folders, Windows folders, using scripts. Okay, and then after creating these folders we began giving or putting permissions on the folders. We have SMB share permissions and we have NTFS share permissions. We have done this using two scripts, one to put SMB share permissions on the department shares, and the other is to put NTFS share permissions on the department shares. Okay, and also the script that will put SMB permissions on the department shares will also share the folders. Okay, additionally it will share the folders, so the SMB share permissions script will share the folders, or will share the department share folders. Okay, and will put SMB share permissions on them. We have done this in the previous video. Okay, and also we have created home user folder directories, okay, using PowerShell scripts, and we have put also permissions and everything that we have done in the previous video. We have put permissions on the share folders, and we then the home user folders, and we use a script to create home user folders. Okay, and then we configured a mapping group policy, so we want to map the department shares, okay, and also the home user folders to be mapped also using a group policy. We will map the department shares using a group policy, and as for the home user folder shares, it will be mounted or mapped automatically through the Active Directory properties. Okay, we have seen this in the previous video. If you need more, please refer to my previous video. And then we have logged into the server with my Active Directory user account, and we have seen how the department shares was mapped, okay, and how the Active Directory home user folder was also mapped. The department shares will have an M letter, and the home user directory will have folder will have an L letter. Okay, all of this we have done it in the previous video. Okay, please, if you want more, please refer to my previous video. Okay, this is my 7th video, so you can return to my 6th video to see what I have done. And this is a general idea of what we have been doing. Here is my desktop or laptop. Its IP is 10.0.1.100. This is the laptop that I have Hyper-V program installed on it. This is the program that we create virtual machines on it, and through the Hyper-V virtual environment we have created a domain So this is the Hyper-V virtual environment. In it we have created the dcdm.local. This is the domain, and through it we have created two domain controllers. The first domain controller is dc01. It's 10.0.1.20, and we have the following installed on it. We have Active Directory installed on it, and DNS and Wins and Group Policy Management. And then we have another or second domain controller, which is dc02, which is 10.0.1.21. We have installed until now DNS, Wins, Active Directory, Group Policy Management, File Server Resource Manager, and in this video we will begin preparing to install the Windows Deployment Server and Microsoft Deployment Tool and the other ADK. All of this will be prepared, or it will be installed in this video. Okay. So these two domain controllers are in this domain, which is dcdm.local. These two servers are attached to an internal, the type of switch is Hyper-V internal switch. This is a virtual switch, and these are two virtual servers or VM workstations, or VM virtual or VM or virtual machines. These are attached to a type of switch is called Hyper-V internal switch, and it have a name DC internal switch. So these two servers are attached to this switch, so they can talk to each other, share with each other, and communicate with each other eventually. Okay, and my laptop is connected to this virtual switch, so I can be able as a laptop to communicate with these virtual machines. Virtual machines in Hyper-V are called guest, and the laptop that I have the program itself installed on it, it will be called host. So I am as a host can communicate with the guest through the Hyper-V internal switch. So I need to be attached or need to be connected to the same the same switch these two servers are attached to. So this is the this is briefly what we have reached in this video. Okay, and we need to now begin in this video preparing ourselves to begin installation of the Windows Deployment Server and Microsoft Deployment Tool. Okay, and this is also my Telegram channel. It's t.m/IT visualizer. If you need to subscribe to my IT Visualizer Telegram channel, I'll be more than glad, because this is also will give you the latest update about my YouTube channel videos, and this is more efficient and more faster, so you can get my updates more faster if you are subscribed to my t.m visualizer channel or the Telegram channel. And of course, if you like the video and playlists, because the playlist in my YouTube channel, please subscribe, like and share. Okay, so now we will begin. And if you need, please, if you need more info on the previous video, please refer to it. It's the 6th video. This is the 7th video. So now we will begin our process of preparing ourselves to install the Microsoft deployment server and Microsoft deployment tool. And through an ADK, and through these three parts we will make Microsoft zero touch installation. So I need to go very quickly. So now what we have done, we have powered on the first domain controller and powered on the second domain controller. I need just to be quickly on it because there is a lot of things. And then I logged into my second domain controller. I don't need to install Office, I need something else. Okay, so here before going further, or before installing the Windows Deployment Server and Microsoft Deployment Tool, I need to do something with the Dhcp setting. Remember that in my lab I have discussed something, or I have said in the scenario of the lab that we will have something on the Dhcp, or a feature on Dhcp. We will enable it. It's called MAC filtering, or something called enable and disable options. We will see that if you have a look now. In the Dhcp, Need to go further. Here we can see that there is two filters, something called, we enable in the DHCP an option called filters, which one is called allow filter and one is called deny filter. Okay, how we can do this? We will go a little bit further. Here we can right click and then tell him enable the allow filter, and then we will also enable the deny filter. Okay, I will discuss in a minute what we mean by this. Okay, for the DHCP, we know that the main feature of the DHCP is to distribute IP addresses to the workstations, okay, so they can be able to communicate with each other. Okay, so to make this process more controllable or more secure, the DHCP will not give an IP address to any workstation unless it is in the allow feature or it is in the allow filter. Okay, and also the opposite, it will not give if you want some workstations not to get IP address from the DHCP, so you can put them in the deny filter. Okay, what is the main function or main advantage of these features? Because through this you can control which one can or which PC or workstation you can give to it IP address. For example, if you are working in a production environment and someone from outside have a laptop, okay, and he tried to hook up to your internal network by just plugging a network cable to his laptop, okay, and then he can get access to your network or your domain by giving an IP address, okay, or by taking an IP address, and then he can begin guessing one of your users' Active Directory user account, and then he can just go and play with your production environment. So how we can prevent this scenario from happening? We will just enable, as I said before, the allow and deny feature, and then we will, in the allow option, we will add all of our workstations in the domain and put it in the allow filters. How we can do this process? The allow filters or the allow filter or the deny filter need two important parts or two important information: the name of the PC or the workstation and the MAC address of this workstation, the MAC address or the MAC address of the network adapter. Okay, the MAC address, this is something like a unique number that your network adapter have. There is no single network adapter that can have the same MAC address as the other. So we mean that we have a lot of network adapters in the whole world. There is network adapters in the PCs, workstations, servers, iPhones, telephones, a lot of things. So every network adapter in each of these devices have a unique MAC address. Okay, so it cannot be duplicated or something. So to enable our workstations to get IP address from our DHCP, we will put them in the allow filter, and then we'll put their name and beside it their MAC address of the MAC address of their network adapter. By this process, we are telling the DHCP to only give our workstations in the domain only to give them IP addresses. So if anyone try to put a network cable in his laptop or his workstation from outside your network or from outside your domain, he will not be able to get IP from the DHCP. And the opposite, if you want to deny someone to get IP address, for example, you need to deny some workers or deny some PCs not to get IP address for any reason, you can put them in the deny filter. So allow and deny will work with two pieces of information: the name of the PC or the workstation and the MAC address of the network adapter of this PC. So we will enable these two features. This is a very important feature, and this is also a recommended feature, and this is something to secure your Active Directory or domain environment. And we will do another thing. We will use our file server resource manager. What we will do, we need, as I said before in the previous video, we have created the department shares and home user folder shares. We need the users not to put the users, or we need the users through using their home user directory share or their department shares, we need them not to put any videos or audio on their department shares or their user folder shares. Okay, so this will be done through the file resource manager through something called filter, through something called file screening option. Okay, this will be done through the file server. We'll do it now. And also, when we have created our department shares and home user folders, we need to give a specific space for every share or every home user folder. For example, the department share, for example, the IT have a department share for them. We need the space for the department share to be a specific quota or specific space. Okay, this can be done also through the file server resource manager. We'll do it now. And we need every user for his personal user folder or for his home user directory folder. We need also this to be specified by a specific space or a specific amount of the hard disk. Okay, we will see that in a moment. Here I'm just checking the network. So now we will go to the file resource manager. First of all, we'll deal with something called quota. Quota, it is here I am specifying, as I said before, every department share and home user folder share to have a specific amount of space allocated to him. For example, I need the department share to have only a space of 10 gigabyte and the home user folder share to have, for example, 1 gigabyte for every user. Okay, we will see that in a moment. Okay, here we right click, okay, and then tell him create quota. And then we will choose, here we'll tell him to create quota on path. We will show him the folder that contain all of our department shares folder. Okay, and then we will give him the amount of space that we will allocate to every department share. Okay, so we'll see that in a moment. And actually this, by using this option, you are creating only one limitation on one folder. Okay, for example, I will show you. For example, in the department shares we have 4 departments. Every department have a folder for itself, which is also a share for it. Okay, or every department will have a folder, and this folder is shared, and this share is their department share. So we will put a quota on the department shares as a whole, and every department share will get its specific amount. We will see that in a moment. Don't be in a hurry. I will show you all. Here I'm telling him I will go to the D. I will show you what I mean. Okay, here we will go, we will choose the path, and we choose the first option. Here the department share contains 4 subfolders. Okay, so I will choose it. Okay, here we can see that we can get a little bit further. I can show you a little bit here. Here we can see that this folder contains subfolders, so I will put a quota on the main folder that contains all of them. So as soon as I do this, I will give the department shares a quota of 10 gigabyte. So that means that every folder under it will have the same limit. For example, I have give a quota for this department share to be only 10 gigabytes, so the global share will have a limit of 10 gigabyte, the HUT will have a limit of 10 gigabyte, the HR will have a limit of 10 gigabyte, the IT will have a limit of 10 gigabyte. Okay, but take note that these 10 gigabyte are shared between them. For example, if the IT have put, for example, 5 gigabyte on his share, and for example the HR put another 5 gigabyte on his share. So after doing this, the HOD will not be able to put anything on his share, and also the global share will not be able to put anything on his global share. So this 10 gigabyte is shared between them. Okay, so it's not everyone have 10 gigabytes. So in total, what I mean that not in total this will have 10 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte, then they have all 40 gigabyte. No, it's 10 gigabyte shared between them. So if for example the IT has put 5 gigabyte and the HR put 5 gigabyte, so it's total of 10, then the HOD will not find enough space, and also the global shell will not have enough space. So take care of this if you use create or the first option of create quota on path. Okay, we have another option I will show you in a couple of minutes that will give, in our scenario, give everyone, for example if this is auto quota, I will show you, but just wait for a moment. First you need to make sure that create a quota on path. This is the scenario. You give a quota on a specific folder, and if it has subfolders in it, it will share this limit with them. For example, the department shares will have 10 gigabyte, so the 10 gigabyte will be shared between the 4 folders, okay, or the 4 department shares. So now we will give them a 10 gigabyte. This is the department shares, and then we will have another quota for the home user folder directory share. This is a special share for every user. So here we will choose the next, just to go another minute. Here we will choose not create quota on path, but auto apply template and create quotas on existing and new folders. By using this option, we will give every folder, I will just bear with me, I will explain in a moment. Here, just a moment, you can get a little bit further. Okay, by using the second option to auto quota, here for example I will give users here 100 megabytes, and we will use the other option auto quota. So by giving 100 megabyte, this means on this folder, this means that every subfolder under it will take 100 megabyte. They will not share the 100 megabyte. Every user will get a 100 megabyte. Okay, so we will just wait for a moment, I will show you all. Okay, by using this option auto apply template and create quotas on existing and new subfolders, that means that if I put the quota on the folder which is name users, every subfolder under this folder will get a 100 megabytes, opposite of what I have done in create quota on path. If I have choose create quota on path on the same folder, every folder under it will share the quota. It will not giving a separate quota. So now I am telling him that every folder under the users will get 100 megabyte using the second option. If I choose the first option, then the whole folder or every folder under users will share the 100 megabyte. Okay, so now we have put 2 quotas, one for the department shares and the other for the user shares or the home user directory folder share. And now we will do some file screening. What I mean that I need users not to put any videos or audio on their department shares or home user directory shares. So I'll create a file screen, and then we will choose the path. Okay, it will be the department shares. Okay, this is the department shares. Telling him to block audio and video files. This is for the department shares. And then we will create file screen, and then we will choose this one for the user shares or the home user directory shares. And now we'll create a blocking. So we block audio and videos. You can block a couple of couple of extensions. For example, you can block exe files, you can block a lot of things, but here I'm just mainly in my production environment or in real life scenarios. Blocking audio and videos are appropriate because this takes a lot of space from the hard disk of the file server, and it's not needed. We don't put videos and audios on our work environment. Okay, we can do this on our personal laptops or personal iPhones or personal phones, but not on the department shares. Okay, so now we have done this. I think we will go further. I need to don't worry, because all of this I will not discuss. This is something I've discussed in the previous videos, so we don't need it. Okay, so bear with me. Okay. No, all of this is not needed anymore. Okay, and so now we will begin the most important part in the lab. Okay, and this is the main objective of the lab, is to show you all how to make a zero touch installation using Microsoft Deployment Server role, and using Microsoft Deployment Tools, okay, and using ADK files. When we combine these three parts or these three things, they will create our zero touch installation process. First of all, we need to download the Mdt tool or tools and the Mdt Console. Okay, so I will show you all how to do this. We will go to the internet, but first I will create a folder. So here where is the fun begins, because this is mainly what we are doing in the lab. Here we want to I want to show you all how we can make a zero touch installation using the Microsoft Deployment Server, and the here I'm creating a folder to download the Mdt 84556. This is the version. I will download it in this folder. Okay, so this is in the main objective of this lab is of how to use the Microsoft Deployment Server and Microsoft Deployment Tool and ADK to create a zero touch installation process for Windows and all of its contents, not only Windows, Office, Firefox, Chrome, and naming the PC and joining it to the domain. All of this will be done with a zero touch installation process. You not intervene with anything during the process. Okay, we will just sit and wait for all of this to be done. Windows installation, Office installation, PC naming, and joining the domain, all of this will be done automatically without interference, and this takes about approximately 40 minutes. Here we will tell him latest ADK files. We'll first download something called ADK files. This is important. What is the abbreviation of ADK? It's called Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit. So we need to download this kit, because this kit contains the Mdt tools that we will need, and then after that we will download something called Mdt Console. Okay, so through this Mdt Console we will use it combined with the Mdt tools, so we can begin the process of the zero touch installation. Of course, also is using the Microsoft Deployment Server role. Okay, so first of all we will go and tell him latest ADK files, and then we will download it. The latest ADK now, it's Windows 10 2004. This is one I have recorded this video when the ADK was version 19.3, Windows 10 1903. Okay, this ADK toolkit is attached to the versions of Windows 10 and Windows Server. Okay, so when you see for example you have a Windows 10 version 1903, so make sure that you download the Windows 10 ADK 1903. Okay, so this is the ADK version the ADK version that you will download will depend upon the Windows version that you have, or the Windows version that you need to deploy. For here in our lab we will deploy Windows 10 version 19.03, deploy it as I said before, automatically through the process of zero touch installation. Okay, so here we will download the ADK Windows 10 version 19.03. we'll download this tool or this tool, and also we'll download something called Windows PE add-on. Okay, we need to download these two files. Okay, and also in additional to Microsoft Deployment Console. So we will download these both. Okay, this Adk Tools can be downloaded and installed online, and or you can download the files offline and then install them by yourself. You will see that in a moment. Here, because I don't have in my virtual environment or in my Hyper-V, I don't have internet, so I will download the files on my laptop and then share. I will download the Adk Tools on my laptop and then share this Adk files with my virtual machines. Okay, so here I will install it in a folder, the folder that's named Mdt 4550 files. Okay, and then tell him next. Okay, and then tell him no or yes as you wish. I tell him yes. Okay, and then next, and then accept. So now it will begin downloading the Adk Tools. Okay, I need to make sure that I am on the right track of time. Okay, I have only half an hour. Okay, so now I will begin this. Here I am changing my two wireless connections because I have one which have more speed or more download speed, so I am connecting to it so I can download these files quickly. So now we are downloading the Adk version 19.03 tools. And then this is some documentation about what is new in Windows Adk Windows 10 version 19.03. Okay, this is because there is a lot of versions for Windows Adk, so every new feature or every new version of Adk will contain some changes. Okay, so now we will go and download the Mdt Console. We will tell him Mdt Toolkit. So we will download Adk Toolkit and Mdt Toolkit. Okay, here we will go to details because there is two versions of this toolkit, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. There is one for the 64-bit version and one for 86 tool version. Okay, so if you have Windows Server 2016, for example, or 2019 46-bit, so you can use the 46-bit version, or if you have 32-bit version of Windows, you can use the Microsoft Deployment Tool 32-bit version. Okay, but here I am using Windows Server 2019 64-bit version. So here we have downloaded the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. So here we will use the Mdt Deployment Toolkit combined with the Adk Tools. Okay, and with the Microsoft Deployment Server. All of this will create what is known as zero touch installation. For Windows, of course, here we will install Windows 10 LTSC version 19.03. Okay, so here we'll download another file which is called Windows PE add-on. So we need to also download this file or download this tool. Also, this tool can be downloaded online or offline, as I did before with the Adk. You can download it on a folder and then you can install it after that, or you can download and install on the same time. So here we have downloaded the the Windows PE, but still this is an online version. We will see how we can download the offline version of it. As I said before, I don't have in my virtual machines internet, so I need to download the files offline, okay, or I need to download it on my laptop first and then install it later on my virtual machines. This process is called offline installation. The online installation, that when you download and install in the same time, this is called online installation. So now I think we are still downloading the Adk Tools, and we have already downloaded the Mdt Tools, Mdt Deployment Kit. Okay, I think I'm in a moment here, sorry. Here I am making a folder for the MDK and ADK. This is for the Mdt Deployment Tool and the ADK Windows PE. Here I'll go and copy them. So now we have already downloaded the files for the Adk Tools. Okay. It is finished. I think I did something here, just a minute. Because I did something. Sorry guys, wait for a moment. Sorry, because there's something missing in the video. I need to discuss it because this is a really important one. Okay. No, I think there is something missing here. Okay, maybe I did do it later. Just a minute. Okay. Okay, I'll discuss this later. There is something I need to discuss concerning the DC01, but I will discuss it later. So here we have already downloaded the files. Okay, so we need to go to the next video I have concerning the installation of the Microsoft Deployment Tool and the Adk Tools. Here we can see this is the 6th video. here of all I have shut down the two domain controllers. I will open them now. So now we will begin installation of what we have downloaded, the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit and the Adk Toolkit also. And also we will configure the Windows deployment server. So here I needed to show you all first before using this video. There is a simple graph that I have created. This graph will explain the process of the zero touch installation. Here we can see that there is a computer. This computer doesn't have any operating system, but it has an option called Dhcp Boot. This enables the workstation or the PC to search or to boot without having an operating system on it. Okay, it's something called Dhcp Boot. Okay, so you can work without having an operating system. I just need it for 1 second until this computer goes to the Microsoft deployment server. It will know its IP address. Okay, by default what will happen that you will power on the PC. It doesn't have any operating system, and then it will go to the Microsoft deployment server. It knows its IP address. Okay, and we'll have this Microsoft deployment server will have the Windows ISO image that this PC through using this ISO image we will install Windows on this PC. And then after that the Microsoft deployment server will go to the Microsoft deployment tool. Here the Microsoft deployment tool, there we have a task or something called a deployment task list. We have some things to be done through this Microsoft deployment tool. First of all, we will automate the process of the Windows installation through a script in this task, and then all of the softwares that we will have, for example the Office and the Chrome and all of these softwares also will be automated through another script in this task. And then at the end, the name of this PC doesn't have a name. It will take its name from the Microsoft deployment tool database. This database contains the names. Okay, so after doing all of this at the end, and also we can add to this joining the domain, okay, in the task list. So after that you will have a final result that the PC joined the domain and giving a name and the Windows operating system installed with all necessary programs. Again, the PC will boot without having an operating system on it. It will contact the Microsoft deployment server, which is it will be our second domain controller, DC02. This deployment server contains an ISO image, this ISO image which has the operating system on it. Okay, and then after that the Microsoft deployment server will redirect it to the Microsoft deployment toolkit, okay, or the Microsoft deployment tool script. Okay, this script will do a lot of things. We can put them in a task list. The deployment tool will have some scripts to automate the Windows installation. Okay, this automation can be, for example, partitioning the hard disk of the PC, doing a lot of things. So this will be done through Windows automation script. We will discuss this step by step in the following videos. And then another script, we will automate the installation of the different softwares. For example, in this lab we want to install Office 2016, Chrome, Firefox, 7-zip, Classic Shell. All of this will be automated through another script called Software Deployment Automation Script. And at the end we need to give this PC a name from this database. How we can differentiate every PC from another one by the MAC address. So in this database we have the MAC address of each PC, each network card of, for example, this PC have a network card, it has a MAC address. The MAC address will be in the database, okay, of the Microsoft deployment tool, and in front of it will be the name that will be given to this MAC address. Okay, so for example, if this PC have a MAC address of 12345, so this MAC address, if the deployment database see this MAC address, it will give this PC a name of, for example, Z or X. Okay, and then after that also through the Windows automation script, this will join the PC to the domain. So at the end we will get a PC joining the domain, giving a name, and Windows operating system installed with all necessary programs. Okay, so this is the final result. We will discuss step by step how this process is done, because there is a lot of details in this process. This is only a general view of what will be done through the process of this whole process is called zero touch installation. This is the process in general. We will discuss it step by step. So now we can go and begin the installation of Microsoft Deployment Tool and the Adk Tools and the Microsoft Deployment Server. Okay, so now we have opened the first domain controller and the second domain controller. As I said before, the second domain controller will be our Microsoft Deployment Server, as in the graph. Okay, this will be the Microsoft Deployment Server. So what we will install first? Should we install the Microsoft Deployment Server, or we should install the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, or we should install the Adk Toolkit first? We will install the Adk Tools Kit first, and then second we will install the Microsoft Deployment Kit, and then at the end we will install, or we will add the Windows Deployment Server role and add it to this server, or to the DC02. So first of all, we need to share what we have downloaded on our laptop or on my PC. We need to share the files of the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit and the Adk Toolkit. We need to share it with my second domain controller, which is a virtual machine. We will share with it through the folder between me and the virtual machine, which is called guest share shortcut. This is a share on my virtual machine that I can access from my laptop, or I can access from my host. Okay, so there is a share between the host and the guest. I am using this share to transfer files and folders between me and the virtual machine, and I have done this in a previous video. Please refer to my previous videos. So now we will copy this So now it's asking for, when you access the share, you need to give it a username and a password. I will put my domain controller, or sorry, the domain admin password, so I can access my share, or can access the share on my DC02, and then I can put it here as paste, and then I can begin the installation. The first step is to install the Adk Tools, and then the second step is to install the Microsoft Deployment Kit, and finally we will configure and install the Microsoft Deployment Server. This is a very not long process. It will take some time, but if you do the configuration correctly, you will have a seamless zero touch installation, and it will do all the work for you. Here we can see that. Just have a moment, we can go a little bit further. Here you can see, and from the previous video you can see that I have my home user folder directory. This is my, and it's taking an L, and this is the department shares. I am a member of the IT, so I can see the IT department share. It's a share and it's mapped to a drive, so this is ITM, and this is the HOD. I'm a member of the HOD, so I have the HOD share, and this share is mapped to an N drive. And then the global share, this is a share, I am a member of this department. This is a share that will be available for all of the other departments. Okay, so it's also mapped to an O. I have done this in the previous video, so please refer to it to see how this is done. So we can see that the mapping policy is done successfully. Here we'll begin installation of the Adk Toolkit. Double click on it. think we can go a little bit further. Okay, so now it's telling me to install. I have downloaded before, so we'll install it on the C whatsoever, and then it will needs only 1 gigabyte of space. Next. I'll tell him no because I don't have internet access. As I said before, my lab doesn't have, or the virtual machines doesn't have access to the internet, so I tell him accept. And then you can choose only the deployment tools, but I will choose all of them because this contains a lot of useful tools you will use when you want to migrate or you want to deploy, so automatically deploy something. So these all are very good tools, so I will just install them all. It's only 1 gigabyte of space, so it's not much of space, but we will use the deployment tools to deploy our or to create our zero touch installation process, this one. It will take a little bit of time until it installs, so I can go a little bit further. Again. Okay. So we need to do, I think, just a minute. Okay, now it's finished. Okay, the deployment. Okay, we have installed the Windows assessment and deployment kit, and then we need to install the Windows PE. This is another part. We have installed the Adk Tools, and then we need to install another thing which is called Windows PE Adk tool. This is need to be installed, but actually I discovered that this file is only a file that will open, and then it will access the internet to install the Windows PE option or the Windows PE tool. So I don't have internet here, so I will go to my laptop and then install the download files. I will download it on my laptop and then share it to this virtual machine and install it in a couple of seconds. So this was only a file that needs to access the internet to install it, okay, or to install the Windows PE environment. Okay, so I need to go to my laptop and then begin installing. Here I think I will shut down the I will shut down the DC02, and then I will go to my laptop and then get to the internet and download the Windows PE files offline, and then share it, and then open this virtual machine again and share it to the DC02, and then begin installing it. So this Windows PE file is only a file that when you click on it, it will get to the internet to install the real files or to install the Windows PE as a whole. So I can do this from my virtual machine, so I need to go to my laptop or my host and then click on the file and download the files offline, and then share these files to my virtual machine, which is DC02. Okay, here I will open. I have downloaded the file before in Mdt files, and then Windows PE. No, this is not the file, this is another file. The file, we need to open this file. This is the file that I tried to open from my virtual machine. and it told me that it needs an access to the internet to begin installation the Windows PE file. Okay, so here I will double click on it, and then I tell him to download the files. Okay, so I can use it on a separate computer. Okay, here is telling you download the files 10 for installation on a separate computer, not on this computer. Okay, so this file is used when you are on the same computer and you want to install it and you have internet on it, but here I need to install it on a separate computer that doesn't have internet. Okay, so here I will begin downloading the files. So here I'm going also to because I have two Wi-Fi connections, so I'm using one that it is fast, which is WE DSL, because this is much faster. So I will use it to download the files. Okay, so now I begin downloading the process, or begin downloading the files. I think it will take a little bit of time. We can pass it quickly. Okay, here we are 99%. I think I paused it, maybe. Yes, it is paused. Okay, I think I can pass it quickly. Okay, now it is finished. We have downloaded the files. I will take it and share it to my DC02, and then we begin installation. After we have installed the Adk Tools, we will install the Windows PE add-on Adk, okay, or Adk winpe add-on. Okay, here is the folder that I have all the files in it. I will share it to my domain controller DC02. So we'll open our Hyper-V, and then we can power on our second domain controller. We have installed already the Adk Toolkit version 19.03 on it. Take care of the versions, because this could make problems if you are not using the Windows 10 version or appropriate Windows 10 version with the appropriate Adk version. Okay, you need to be identical. Adk versions should be exactly the version of the Windows 10 that you are trying to deploy. Okay. Here I will copy this folder to the share between my host and my DC02 virtual machine. Here it is. This is the IP of my domain controller, or second domain controller, DC02. Okay, I put it in the MDK files. And also take note that the MDT, it's 8456. Okay, this is the toolkit, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. This is the latest one in the time that I have been recording this video. It's 8456. I think there is another version, maybe I don't know, but I think there is another latest version, but this is all our little differences, okay, but they work with the same concept. Okay, so here I will log into my second domain controller and begin installation the installation of the ADK Windows PE add-on. Okay, and after installing the ADK Windows PE add-on, we will begin installation of the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. I think the time is I think it's not so much. Okay, we have 1 hour, and then we will install the ADK Windows PE and then install it. No, I don't think we don't need this file. Anyway, we will wait. Okay, now we will tell him to install. Okay, it's take about 5.7 gigabyte. Next, accept. And then it already choose one thing. It's Windows pre-installation environment, and then we will begin installing the feature. It will take a little bit of time. So it's already finished. Now we will go and install the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. We will use the 64-bit because this is Windows Server 2019 Data Center 64-bit. Next, accept. Next, do not want to join. Okay, install. And after that we will have a console for the Microsoft Deployment tool. So we will add this console to our custom console. As I said before, this is a way that I can manage all of my tools in one place. Okay, I will install because the DNS console, the DHCP console, all of these are in one console, so I'll add with them the Microsoft Deployment console here. And also when I install the Windows Deployment Server console, when I install the Windows Deployment Server feature, I will add its console to the same console. So we have only one console. From one console we can configure everything from one console. Okay. So here I want to give, but I will wait until I show you something. I need to explain something, but First, he will begin some initial configuration for the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit through its console, but I will show you what I will not configure much in this video, but we will begin working most of our lab in this console, or working with this Microsoft Deployment Console. So here we'll go to File and Add Snapshot, okay, or Add or Move Snap In. We will add the Microsoft Deployment Tool, or Microsoft Deployment Console here with all of the other consoles, okay. This is an easy way so you can manage a lot of things from one place. Here we'll add Microsoft Deployment, okay. This is console, the console for the Microsoft Deployment. Okay, and then we will begin our first step in configuration of the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit by creating, but just wait for a moment. Okay, there is something called deployment shares. Oh, this is the first thing we will create, something called a deployment share. Okay, we will create something called a deployment share. What is deployment share? I will show you over here. We can see that in the process for the zero touch installation, we can see that the computer will boot and go to the Windows deployment server, which our DC02, the one that we have configured the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit on it, and also we will configure the Microsoft Deployment Server on it. So in this process, the PC will go to the Microsoft Deployment Server, and then it will redirect him to the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit or task. Okay, so all of these scripts and task, it will be contained in a share folder called deployment share folder. Okay, so where is this share? It is on the DC02, okay, on the folder, because this server, it's DC02. We will have Microsoft Deployment Server on it, and we will have Microsoft Deployment Tool on it. So the PC will go to the Microsoft Deployment Server, okay, and then it will redirect him to the Microsoft Deployment Tool. Okay, this tool, it's not a tool here, it's a shared folder. Okay, so this PC can access, and through accessing this share or this deployment share folder, this folder contains the scripts that this PC will run, so he can automate the process of Windows installation, software installation, and all of the other necessary process. So the PC goes and communicate with the Microsoft Deployment Server, okay, and then after that it will redirect him to the Microsoft Deployment share folder. This share folder contains the scripts that will automate the process for Windows installation, the software, other software installation, and also it will contain the database, or it will contain the things that will get the name of the PC from it. So this is a very important share. It's called deployment share folder. This deployment share folder, if it's not available or this share is down, then you will not be able to complete the process of the zero touch installation. So the first thing to do when you install the Microsoft Deployment Tool, you need to make a deployment share folder, okay, or make a deployment folder and share it, so all of the PCs can be able to access it, so they can be able to complete the zero touch installation process. So I think now we can go and complete it. So we tell him, just a minute, if we can go a little bit further. Okay, we'll right click and tell him new deployment share. Okay, and then we will choose where this deployment share will be. It will be in the D. I prefer it to be in a separate partition, not on the partition that contains the operating system. and you'll give it a name. We will leave the name as it is. It's $$ here. Just a minute. You can have a little bit of a comment on here. Okay, why this share contains an $$ in it at the end? This makes it a hidden share. Okay, so not all. Just a minute, guys. So why this share contains an $? So it can be hidden. Okay, so no one can access it except for the workstations that will want to deploy Windows 10 automatically. Okay, this is a process done. Okay, so if someone tells me how the workstation will know this share if it is hidden, okay, it will not know it. The Windows deployment server will redirect it to the deployment share automatically. The workstation doesn't know the place of this share. Okay, it will be only redirected to it, but you make a $ here because this will be in your domain structure and your domain environment, so you don't need any users in the Active Directory to be able to access this share. So you're making it as a hidden share. This is for security reasons. Okay. Next, we name it, and then it's telling us some options here. It's saying ask if a computer backup should be performed, ask for a product key, ask to set the local administrator password, ask if an image should be captured, ask if the BitLocker should be enabled. Okay, ask if the backup should be performed. We don't need backup in the moment. Product key, if you have, this is because it's preparing it for the Windows 10 automatic deployment. Okay, so here when you begin Windows 10 automatic deployment, it will ask for a backup. It will ask for the Windows 10 key, license key. It will ask if you need to set a password for your local administrator. This is a password that, as I said before, when you install Windows 10 or Windows Server for the first time, there is a default username which is called administrator. This is called local administrator, and this is very powerful. It have full access on the workstation or on the Windows system. Okay, so this local administrator need to have a password. It is blank by default, so you need to give it a password, and you need to rename it from administrator to any other thing, and then to disable it and make another user that have administrator privileges. Okay, I have discussed this before, but anyway, all this will be done through a group policy, so we don't bother ourselves with it. So we will uncheck this and uncheck this and uncheck this, and ask an image should be captured. If you need, for example, after installing Windows and all of, as we see in our process, you will install Windows and other softwares. If you need after that to take an image from it, no, we'll not make it now, but we'll make it later. And at the end, say if BitLocker should be enabled. If you need to encrypt the hard disks on this PC or the one that you will deploy Windows 10, if you need to encrypt it with BitLocker. BitLocker is a system that you use to encrypt data on your hard disk. Okay, so I don't need all of them. I will do this later, step by step, but I will not do it now. So we will uncheck it and then we'll do it later. Next. Okay, and then we tell him next. Here then he will prepare this folder. It will begin copying some files, and it will begin copying the scripts needed for deployment, and will add some folders, okay, that is needed for the deployment or for the automatic deployment. We will use this folder in all our lab deployment share. This will be a very critical share or folder. So now we are preparing ourselves to the deployment or the zero touch installation. Okay, now it's finished. So we have made our deployment share folder. After that we need to do something. If you make any change, as we see now that we will have a lot of features when we work in the upcoming videos on anything. For example, if you need to add anything here or any change has been done to this Microsoft deployment, we need to make an update or make a refresh, something like this. Anyway, we have already created our deployment share, and the MDT is partially ready. The MDT tool is partially ready. We will go now and install the Microsoft deployment server role. As I said before, we will use the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit and the ADK Deployment Kit, and we will use the Windows also PE ADK and the Windows Deployment Server. All of these are combined to create a zero-touch installation process. So you will tell him manage. And then add roles and features. So the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit and the Windows Deployment Server role, they will be on the same server, which is DC02. Okay, we'll tell him next, and then next. Next, and then next. And then we will add Microsoft Deployment Services. Here there is a little note that he will tell you that here guys, here it's saying, here is, sorry, we will get back for it. Here, okay, we'll tell him next. And then it's saying a note here saying that because you have the DHCP on this server, okay, so installing Windows Deployment Server on a server that contains DHCP also needs some special configuration, okay. So he's telling you that he will do this configuration, okay. So if you have a spare server, I recommend you to put the Windows DS or Microsoft Deployment Server apart from the DHCP. So the DHCP will be on a server, and the Windows DS will be on another server, okay. So here I don't have this facility, so I already don't have this option, so I installed them both on the same server. So here he will configure it or make a special configuration so both DHCP and WDS can work simultaneously or work together without problems, okay. Oh, sorry guys, okay. Anyway, this will be this message is not telling you what I'm talking about, but it will be asked in the next slide or the next window, okay. But here is telling you that the Microsoft Deployment Server needs DHCP and DNS to be installed or to be available on your network, okay. So this is already there, and he's telling you that you need to have some configuration to be done. We will not do anything with the deployment Windows Deployment Service. We will not configure anything on it, or all of our configuration will be done through the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, okay. I will see how this will be done. Anyway, just take note, it's saying some things, don't bother yourself with this, because as I said before, we will not use the Microsoft Deployment Service. We will not configure anything on it except some things or some options, but basically we will work with the Microsoft Deployment Tool, okay. All of the configuration and all of the boot files and all of the images will be done through the Microsoft Deployment Tool. So here it's Deployment Server, next. Okay, we will tell him next, and then install. And also we will add, after finish the installation of the Microsoft Deployment Services, we will add the Microsoft Deployment Services to the our custom console. So we have all of what we need in one console. So here I think it's still installing. Anyway, it's already installed, and now we will add the Microsoft Deployment Services. Sorry, it's not Microsoft Deployment Server, it's Microsoft Deployment Services. Okay, so now what we will do, we will add the snapshot, add and remove snapshot, and we will add the Microsoft Deployment Services console, and here it is. We just make sure it is here. It's saying it's not started yet, so we just need to right click or it's not configured, and then to configure. It's saying here what I'm talking about. Here is saying that this server is a member of Active Directory domain, okay, or this is a domain controller. He's saying this is the Windows Deployment Services requirement. You need this to be a member of Active Directory domain services domain, okay, and you need to have the DHCP on the network. We have said this before, and there is an DNS. We have already DNS, and we have NTFS partition, the partition that we have already installed all of these features on it. It's on NTFS file system permission, or file system partition, sorry. So now we will continue. And then integrated, here we can see, no, just a minute, we can go backward. No, I think we can go also a little bit further. There is an option called integrated or standalone. Here we can see that it is integrated with Active Directory, so this server is a member of an Active Directory domain or a domain controller, okay, or a domain controller for an ADS domain, okay. So it is integrated with Active Directory. This is not a standalone. This is not in a work group, or it's not in an Active Directory. So if you don't have an Active Directory and you need to make a Windows deployment server without joining it to an Active Directory domain, so this is your second option. But here we have an Active Directory, so we will choose the first one. And then here it's saying that something. Here is the remote installation folder will contain boot images, installed images, Bixby boot images. Basically, if you see our graph here, I'm telling you that this computer without any operating system will talk to the Windows deployment server, okay. So in this location, C remote installation, the Windows ISO image, or the image that we will use, or sorry, the DVD that we'll use to install Windows for this PC, it will be saved on C remote installation folder, okay. This will contain the boot image or the install images, okay. You can save files in here, okay, but basically we will not use this location, okay. You will not put our Windows ISO image in this location. We will put it in our deployment share, okay. But actually, if you are not using Microsoft Deployment Tool and you need only, or you will make the zero touch installation using only the Microsoft Deployment Services, you will not use Microsoft Deployment Tool or Adk, so then you can put the installation or the Windows ISO in this location. But because we are using Mdt Tool and Windows Deployment Services and Adk, we will put the ISO image, or the Windows ISO image will be put in the deployment share that we have done in a couple of seconds. But this is important for the configuration of the Microsoft Deployment Services, okay. It's saying here that it's not recommended to put the remote install on the C or the partition that contains the operating system, okay. And think we can hear here it's saying that, as I said before, this is the special configuration that I am talking about. If you have the DHCP and the Windows deployment services on one server, so there is some certain configuration to be done. Why? Because when you open the PC and it doesn't contain any operating system, it will listen, or it will try to figure out by something called a broadcast, okay, where is the Microsoft deployment services server, okay. So this is the same process that it also uses. If the workstation also needs to get an IP address, it will also broadcast and listen where is the DHCP server is. So for the workstation, will not conflict between the DHCP and Microsoft deployment services. These two will have different ports, so they can make the workstation communicate to it easily. For example, maybe the DHCP will have port 60, I'm just assuming. DHCP will have port 60 and the Microsoft deployment services will have port 80. So when the workstation tries to communicate with port 60, it will talk to the DHCP, and if it wants to communicate with the Microsoft deployment services, it will communicate with port 80. So this dilemma happens because the DHCP and Windows deployment services are on the same server, okay. So let's see here, it's running dynamic host, it's running on this server, okay. So this, as I said, this dilemma happens because he's saying here that because as I said before, because the Windows deployment services and the DHCP use the same ports, okay, for broadcasting their IPs, okay. So here he's telling you, I will get, do not listen on DHCP ports, okay. He will use another port to broadcast his IP address, and we will configure DHCP options for proxy DHCP. Another time I will discuss it again. When a workstation for the first time, it doesn't have any operating system, and then you power it on, okay, it needs to know the Microsoft deployment services server, and it needs to know the DHCP server. The DHCP server, so it can get an IP address, and the Microsoft deployment services, so it can deploy Windows, okay. If you didn't configure these two, they will be the workstation will not know which one to talk to, because they are listening on the same ports. The Microsoft deployment services and the DHCP are listening to the same ports, okay. So this will make a conflict. So to make it more differentiated, or to make it more easy, the Windows deployment services will have certain ports that the DHCP doesn't use. So when the workstation communicates with the DHCP, it will communicate with a port, and when it communicates with the Microsoft deployment services, it will communicate on different ports. Anyway, you don't need to know the mechanism. Just make sure if you have DHCP and Microsoft deployment services are on the same on the same server, make sure that these two options are checked. I think it's next to suppose, yes. And then there is an option saying that when the workstation here in our graph, when the workstations try to communicate with the Microsoft deployment server, here this option says respond to all clients, okay. Should it respond to all clients, okay, or should it respond to non-clients, for example your Active Directory computers, or should it do not respond to anyone, do not respond to any client, okay. I mean that PCs in your Active Directory or out of your Active Directory, or respond to a non-client only for computers in your Active Directory, or to respond to all known from your Active Directory domain or out of your Active Directory domain. We will use this for a moment, okay, because if I use this, okay, then if I use this option, then the computer will directly communicate with the Windows deployment server, and it will get its approval, and it will automatically begin the deployment process. But if I told him, for example, require administrator approval, so I need to go to the Microsoft Deployment Console and then approve him, and then after approving him he will go and begin deployment. Okay, so we will use this option, so just save time. We'll tell him to respond to all clients. But if you need to, because this also will make the process more automated, so I don't need to be on the server and to approve every client I need to deploy, or every PC I need to deploy, I need to approve it, to approve its deployment. This will save time. Okay, and you are sure that all of these computers are in your domain. You are in a closed environment. So you don't need to bother yourself with the other two options. Use this one. Okay, and after that we can discuss if you need it to be for non-computers or for unknown computers. Okay, he's saying that you need administrator approval for unknown computers. Here this is option saying you require administrator approval for unknown computers. Hey, so he will approve known computers from your domain or Active Directory, but unknown you need his approvals. This is also logic. Okay, I have all of them, doesn't have any system, and they didn't join the domain. This will be done through the deployment process, so this is considered to be unknown computers. So I will not bother myself to approve every unknown computer. I will leave them all, or I will approve them all. Okay, here we can see that we have configured the Microsoft deployment services. Here we can see that it doesn't start, so I tell him to start the service. Sometimes it starts automatically and sometimes you need to start it manually. So here I'm telling him to start the services. So now we have the Windows deployment services installed, okay, and configured. Now we will begin another process for something called importing the Windows ISO. Okay, as I said before, here let's talk here a little bit. Here we can see that just wait for a moment. I will tell you guys what we will do. Here what we will do, we will do something called import the operating system. Here we will add an operating system. This is the place where the Windows 10 ISO image will be here. It will be here. We will import it to the Microsoft deployment share. Okay, we'll put it here, and then we will run, or through using this ISO image we will begin using our scripts to automate the process of installing the Windows system from this ISO image. Okay, so here we will insert a Windows 10 ISO image or Windows 10 DVD, and then from here we'll tell him to import this, or to import the contents of this DVD to the Microsoft deployment share. Okay, and after importing it we will add our scripts. Okay, so here we can do some process here. If you can see here is the ISO image. It will be imported to the share, to the deployment share, and then we will begin adding our scripts to this ISO image, so all of the process will be working automatically. This is something like an unintended files. If you know the process of working, there is a process for installing Windows called Windows unattended installation. It's something like XML file you add it to the Windows ISO image, so the process of the installation will be done automatically. So this is the same. We will import the Windows ISO image to the Microsoft deployment tool, and then we will add our scripts to the Windows ISO image, so all of the process will be done automatically. Okay, so we will do this now. We will go and add the Windows ISO image. Here we will use Windows 10 LTSC Enterprise 2019. So here we will import the ISO. Here I am using Windows 10 LTSC 2019. Here I have already inserted the ISO image, and then I'll tell him import operating system. We'll tell him full set. Just a minute. Again, tell him import operating system, and then we tell him to get an operating system from a DVD or CD, the one that we have mounted now or we have put it now. He will take all of the operating system files from this DVD, okay, and after importing the Windows DVD files or Windows operating system files, we will add to it some scripts, and this all will be integrated, so when the user goes or open his PC and communicate with the Windows Server deployment server, the ISO image, Windows 10 ISO image, will contain the scripts, so all will work from one place, okay. So for example, you don't need to go to the ISO image and then you go to the Microsoft deployment tool that contains the scripts. No, all will be integrated in one place. So the Windows ISO image will be in the Microsoft deployment share folder that will contain the Windows ISO or Windows operating system files plus the scripts, okay. So this is what we will do. So basically it will not contain the Windows deployment server will contain only the boot files or the Windows boot files that will allow this PC to get to the Microsoft deployment share, okay. So this will contain something called a boot image, okay. The only thing that will do, this PC will communicate with the Windows deployment server and will get a boot image, okay, or a boot system. This is only a step to get him to the Microsoft deployment share that will contain the Windows ISO image files and the scripts, okay. So because as we know that this doesn't contain an operating system, okay, so to communicate with the Microsoft deployment share you need to have a system. You cannot communicate with the Microsoft deployment tool unless you have a system installed. So the boot file or the boot image is a partial system, or it's something like a system that we will use for a certain time, so we can communicate with the deployment share that will contain the Windows ISO files and the scripts, okay. So we can go now and complete the process. Here it's telling us set of source, as I said before, and then we will get to the source directory. Here I'm telling him to get his files from the DVD files, okay. So here basically he will copy the files of the DVD to the Microsoft deployment share, okay, and then tell him next. It will take some time. It will make two folders, one for the operating system 46-bit or 64-bit and the other for the 86-bit, okay. So now we have already we have two versions, because there is LTSC and NTLC. Here we need to do a very important thing. After doing anything concerning changing options or making any change in the Microsoft deployment tool or environment, we need to tell him update deployment share, okay. This is very critical, okay. And for the first time, you need him to complete regenerate the boot images. This is the first, or if you are updating the deployment share for the first time, you need to tell him complete regenerate boot files, okay. But after that, if you make it for the second time, you need to choose the first option, which is optimize the boot image updating process. What here he is doing, he is creating a boot image. As I said before, a boot image, this is a partial system that, okay, the boot image here, this is not Windows ISO image, this is Windows boot image, okay. So this image or this system is a partial system this computer will use, so he can be able to communicate with the Microsoft deployment share that will contain the Windows operating system files plus the automation scripts, okay. So he can begin working and in deploying the Windows, and then we will get the final result, okay. So this will not contain the Windows ISO image, this is a mistake. It will contain the Windows boot image, okay. So here in this process, what we are doing here, we are generating the boot images. This is a very critical process, okay, because after generating the boot images, we will do another step, okay. So be careful. So now we need to do something. I forgot to do something when we will go to the first domain controller, okay, and we'll do something we have missed in our previous videos. You remember that the second domain controller is also acting as a DNS and acting as a WINS, because we have already installed these two features on it, because we have promoted to be a second domain controller. So this second domain controller also acts as a DNS, and we have installed the WINS feature on the DC02, which is also, as I said before, it's a second domain controller. So we need to go to the first domain controller. I'll tell him that you have another DNS and another WINS. Okay, I'll show you how to do this, but first our boot images has been finished and has been created. We have two boot images, one for the 64-bit system and one for the 86-boot system. So what we will do here, we will add, he will go to the Windows Deployment Services, and in the boot images we'll tell him to add boot images. We will add both boot images created in the Microsoft Deployment tool. Okay, so here is the process. Again, here the computer will boot, and then he will communicate with the Windows Deployment Server, and the Windows Deployment Server contains two boot images, one for the 64-bit and one for the 86-bit. okay, and then these boot images will, or after choosing one of them, if he is using 64-bit, he will use this boot image to communicate with the Windows Deployment share folder that will contain the Windows ISO images, so the Windows ISO files or the Windows operating system files plus the scripts, and then the deployment process will begin. So we get at the end a PC joining the domain and giving a name, and the operating system and the programs are installed. Okay, so here we will add the boot images. Where is the boot images? I will show you all. It's in the deployment share. It will be in a folder called boot images. We will see that in a moment. So basically we are telling the deployment services to use the boot images created in the deployment share, so we can access after that the ISO files or the Windows ISO files and the scripts. Okay, so wait for a moment. Tell him the location of the file. Here we will go to the deployment share. So really the basic function of the deployment services is to enable Pixie Boot, or to enable the clients to get a boot image. This is the main function. Here we can see this. We go for a moment because I have here how we can get the boot images. We will go to the deployment share, and then there is something called boot, and the boot we have two, light touch 64 and 86. okay, tell him next, next, next. We will add one for the 86-bit, and then we add one for the 64-bit. And then we add the one for the 64-bit. Just a moment. So now we'll begin. Okay, we have added already the 64-bit boot image. So now we have added the boot image. Then we'll do some configuration to the Windows deployment services. I will show you here. This is when we go to the option, we will go to the client, okay, to the boot. Here let's simulate what will be done when you open the computer that doesn't contain any operating system. To make it go and communicate with the Windows deployment server, we need to press a key or to initiate a process called system pixie boot. Okay, this process should be initiated or should be done pressing F12. Okay, pressing F12. So here what I am doing, I am telling him require the user to press F12 to continue with the pixie boot. Okay, so this we should press F12 so we can begin the process of the pixie boot, and then after beginning the pixie boot process, it will communicate with the Windows deployment server and will begin the boot image. We will choose if it's boot image 64-bit or 60 or 86-bit, and after choosing the boot image, it will go and communicate with the Microsoft deployment share, which will contain the scripts and the Windows image or files, and then it will begin the process of implementing the scripts combined with the Windows ISO files or the Windows installation files. So here what I have done, that I told him to continue the pixie boot unless the user press the escape key. Okay, why is this? Because if I am working with 53 PCs, okay, so I don't need to press F12 for every one of them for the first time to boot. Okay, this will be a headache for me. Okay, so I am just lazy, so I told him to go pixie boot or to go to the pixie boot process without pressing F12. Okay, I need only if I need to cancel the process, I can press escape. Okay, so this will save me some time. But what if you forgot to go to the computer after the process? For example, if you have finished the process and the computer have joined the domain and giving a name, everything is correct and everything is fine, and for any reason you restarted this PC, it will begin the process again. It will begin and communicate with the ISO with the Windows deployment server, and it will begin installation again. So you need to be careful when you use this option or use the third option. You need to be careful just to be in front of the computer. Okay, so if it restarts and then it begins booting, you need to press escape so it will cancel all of this process and goes to the domain directly. So okay, you can, if you're working, I prefer that you use the first option, which is press F12 to continue to the pixie boot. So you are be in front of the PC and then you press F12. Okay, and then after the deployment finishes, the next time it will go directly, because you will not if you didn't press F12, it will contain or it will continue booting to the operating system, and you will not enter the pixie boot system or the pixie boot option. So anyway, I will use the third option, but you can use the first option. Okay, and then we'll do something here. We'll tell him that I need you to choose the boot image 64-bit. I know that my operating system or the system that I need to install is 64-bit system, so I will use the 64-bit option, so it's automatically chosen for you. Okay, so I don't need to tell the user or to tell the one that is in front of the computer to choose one of the boot images. I need everything to be automatically done. So to do this, I choose the third option and here, but as I said before, it's a little bit tricky, and I also choose the boot image, so everything will be done automatically. You just need to press the PC, it will boot in the pixie boot mode, and then it will choose the 64-bit option. And this is also logical because I don't have 86-bit system. I am using Windows 10 LTSC 2019 64-bit system. Okay, so I am telling him to choose the 64-bit boot image and to continue the pixie boot unless I press escape. Okay, but for best practice you can choose the first one, require the user to press F12, but that needs your intervention. You need to be in front of the PC. As for me, I need it to be 100% automated from the beginning to the end. Okay, so it will need some intervention in some time, but we need it to be the least. Okay, and this is done for the non-knights, for example. Okay, I can tell you something here. We can tell him to choose the third option, continue the Dhcp boot unless the user presses escape. This is for the non, okay, you can, this is for the unknown computers, okay, because we have a computer here, for example, this computer doesn't or didn't join the domain or don't have any operating system. So this PC is for the Windows deployment server. It is an unknown computer. Okay, so we can use here the third option to continue the Dhcp boot unless the user press escape, because this is an unknown computer. But after installing here, after installing and everything is done, it will be a known computer. It will have joined the domain and the domain knows it, so it will be a known computer, because the difference between unknown and known, that the known is the one that has joined the domain, the unknown is the one that doesn't or didn't join the domain. Okay, so here we can tell him, for example, for the unknown to continue Dhcp boot unless the user press escape, and then for the known we tell him to require the user to press F12. So here we can make the best complex combination, because here I need only for example, as I said before, if after you installed or everything is done and this is joined the domain and you restarted it, it will not go again and repeat the process of installation of the Windows again. So this is a known computer. We will tell him from here that the known computers will continue unless the press key is the unknown, it will be continue unless the press escape key, and for the known we will require the user to press F12. So this is the best combination we can use. Okay, and you can choose whatever you like, but this I think is the best one. And then we will choose the architecture 64-bit to be the one for the 64-bit boot image. Here we will use the 64-bit. So now we have everything. If we use this combination, then I can guarantee you all a 100% zero touch installation. You will just only power the machine and you leave everything, and at the end you will see that the PC is ready and join the domain, and you can work with it directly. Okay, so now I think we have finished the installation. Okay, and the upcoming video will begin working with the scripts. We need to make Windows 10 deployment automation script and software automation deployment script. So we can deploy Windows automatically using a script and deploy the rest of the softwares like Office 2016 and Chrome and Firefox and Classic Shell and 7-zip. All of this should be also deployed using a script and to be automated. Okay, and then we will save it. Now we will go, and I said before I need to go to the first domain controller because I have forgot to add the second DNS. Here I am just ejecting we don't need the DVD for the Windows 10 anymore. I prefer to use the Windows 10 LTSC by the way, because it's a version that doesn't contain Windows Store or Windows Cortana, and there's a lot of features removed from this Windows 10 LTSC. It's basically, I think it's the best one to use in a production environment. You don't need users to be distracted by Windows Store or to install something from the Windows Store or to use Cortana, which is very heavy on the machine, or to use Edge. Okay, all of this are removed from this version, which make it lighter and more professional in working with it. Okay, you can, for example, for sure, if there is any comments, you can tell me if there is any better version, but I have already used it and it was perfectly in my production environment. So here we will go to the first domain controller, as I said before, to add in the network connection properties, to add the second domain controller DNS and the second domain controller wins, which is, we will see that now in a moment. So now we will go to the control panel and then open the network connection setting for the network team card. Okay, as I said before, we have two network cards and they have one network connection team, network team connection, and then we will add the second domain controller DNS and the second domain controller wins. Okay, we have forgot to do this. This is very important because these two are backup for each other, so you need to have both DNSs. You need to go to the second domain controller and add the DNS and the wins for the first domain controller, and vice versa. You need to go to the first domain controller and add the DNS and wins for the second domain controller. We will see that in a moment. Okay, you go there, properties. Okay, again go to the network setting, and then we go to the team. Okay, we have done, and then properties, the two network cards having only one network connection or a team network connection. Then we go to the TCP, and then we need to add in the second DNS the IP of our second domain controller because it's acting also as a domain controller and as a DNS. And then also we need to add the wins. Okay, also we have another wins, and then we need to tell him something. We in the previous video have tell him in the wins configuration that you have a partner. When we were working on the second domain controller and we have our wins installed, we go to the wins configuration or the wins console and tell him that you have another partner which is 10.0.1.20. This is your partner of wins, so they can replicate the data between them. Okay, so the wins data will be typical on the second and the first domain controller. Why they are doing replication? So if one of them fails, the other one will work perfectly and with the complete data. And also if you have two domain controllers, they should replicate, so every configuration in the the first domain controller will have his configuration typical to the configuration of the second domain controller. So if one of them fails or didn't work, the other one will work with complete and synced and the latest synced data. Okay, so we will go to the first domain controller, to the wins console, and we will tell him that we have, after modifying the network connection for the first domain controller, and we add our second DNS and second wins, we'll go to the wins configuration on the first domain controller and tell him that you have a partner. We have done this for we have done this on the second domain controller, but we forgot to do this on the first domain controller. Here we can see that the wins is not running. Sometimes that happen in a virtual environment, so we need to tell him to start the service, and we'll tell him so now we will go and add the second partner. We will go to replication partners and then new partner, and we'll tell him the IP of our second domain controller or the name of our second domain controller. You can choose any one of them, and then we'll tell him to replicate. We have done this also in the second domain controller. So we have typical configuration. This is for redundancy issues, so both of them will have the same configuration, so if one of them fails, the other will work with the complete data or complete configuration of the first one. So now I think the video is finished. I think we will do something else. I think now we will shut down. Okay, so now we have finished our first video. From this moment we will begin working with the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit configuration. We will work a lot on it, so we can automate the whole process or the deployment, or to work with something called the zero touch installation. So be prepared. Okay, so I hope this video was informative for you all, and I would like you all to thank you for viewing. Okay, so I think this is this we can do this. Okay, I have already shut down, but I will do something. Please take note. I'll do something here. After shutting down the second domain controller, I will make a checkpoint. Okay, we have discussed before what is a checkpoint. A checkpoint is to take a backup of the virtual machine, something like taking a backup. Okay, similar to something to take a backup, because if for any reason the system has failed or this virtual machine has failed, I can return to my failed as a configuration. I can return to my restore point or checkpoint. Okay, so I have done a checkpoint, and now I have shut down the machine, and now I have done this also when I was creating or finished configuration my first domain controller. You need to make regular checkpoints for your virtual machines, because this will be a backup process for you. So if anything fails with the virtual machine as a configuration, you can return to your checkpoints. Okay, so I think now we can, this is finished. Thank you, and see you the next video. Thank you so much.